Welcome on in, everybody. Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you're doing fantastic out there, Heat Nation. Hope you're staying dry. It's crazy down here. It was a nutty night with the ultra, the traffic. Tommy Tiger told me this morning on Heat Weekly. He goes, there was also Hamilton that was going on down at the Arch Center. So traffic was just nuts down there. Could not handle it. It was craziness. Much like the Miami Heat could not handle the Pelicans, who were, went from Pelicans to Peacocks because they were peacocking all over the place on social media. Jimmy Butler standing by his word. They're the better team. We'll see. Miami Heat obviously going through it a little bit this month. They had a fantastic February. March has been very helter-skelter, very, very mediocre, very up and down. And, they got a big last 3 games on this homestand, to which you would like to see Miami see if they can clean these next 3 out and improve that record a little bit. But I didn't want to spend a little bit of time because there's a lot of stuff right now with the Miami Heat. And I've said this. It's not that I'm not pissed with what they're at, but there's also only so much I think I can get mad at, knowing that they're dealing with injuries. They don't have, 3 key rotation players. They don't have one of their top scorers. They don't have their backup big. They don't have their best shooter. Arguably their third best player in Duncan Robinson, hopefully, who will be back against the Cavaliers. Does not seem like an extended absence for Duncan Robinson. Bam Adebayo is playing with a busted up hip/back. Jimmy Butler is playing with a banged up foot. Caleb Martin's playing with a banged up everything. If it sounds like I'm making excuses, take it for what it is. But it also, you can look at them as excuses, reasons, whatever the hell you want to put it forth. I don't really care. But I do want to get to one thing that has been consistent in this month. One thing that has changed in the month of March that I'm wondering is just a hot streak, or if we have finally hit a next part of evolution of Bam Adebayo's game. And that is, of course, the elusive unicorn to his game. Really the only thing we've been waiting for this fantastic center, defensive player of the year candidate, one of the best two-way players in the game, one of the best centers in the game. This has been probably the last part of his evolution we've all been waiting on. That is, of course, Bam Adebayo hitting the three-point shot. It has been such an interesting journey in Bam's NBA career, because this has been a guy who went from an all-energy, basically alley-oop lob threat to, a guy who would facilitate with the offense a little bit more and get guys involved and do dribble handoffs and set great screens and get his shooters open, and being that real part of the Heat's game. There was one point where Pat Riley had said, I think it was after the year they got bounced in the Eastern Conference Finals, where Pat Riley had said that Bam is owed half of the salaries from Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, and Tyler Hero, that they should all give him half their checks.
He's always getting somebody open. Duncan should pay him half his check. Tyler should pay him half his check. Max should pay him half his check. I mean, you don't realize what he does to get people open.
But now was an interesting part last night where Bam Adebayo hits a corner 3, which I was hoping for. I remember thinking to myself, there was some moments yesterday in that just awful turd fest of a game. I was like, maybe that Bam 3 could be some kind of a spark. And then unfortunately what had happened was he missed out on a rebound that Jose Alvarado snuck in and got, and then Alvarado stuck a 3 right in his face. So spoiler alert, it was not a spark plug for the Heat. But it did go on for the 5th straight game of Bam hitting a 3-point attempt. Definitely the longest streak of his career. And right now seems like he has a lot of confidence in taking that shot. He took one early in the game. I thought that it was going in. And obviously this has been a stretch where he has gone 6 for his last 7 from downtown, including a buzzer-beating game winner against the Detroit Pistons. And if it wasn't Bam Adebayo hitting that, you probably wouldn't feel that good about beating the Pistons. But because of the player that it is and the way that he was able to do it, it inevitably just gave you a huge, huge lift as far as, man, could this finally be something? Are we finally going to see Bam Adebayo have his Chris Bosh moment where this becomes part of the arsenal? Because with Chris Chris came down to Miami. He was a mid-range, silky smooth jumper specialist, one of the most polished offensive players in the game. Great power forward who then the Heat would use as a small ball 5. And eventually, especially in the 2012 season, of course, he had that huge 3-ball against the Atlanta Hawks where Chris Bosh was basically carrying the team because no Dwayne Wade, no LeBron James. And then, of course, we really saw it. He gets injured in that playoff run, comes back against the Boston Celtics, and nails threes in the Eastern Conference Finals. And it really starts becoming part of his game, which is why everybody has said, oh, man, the unfortunate thing about Chris Bosh's health is that, he would have aged in this game very gracefully if his three-point shot would have continued to be able to grow and he was able to still play. But the question here for the Heat is this finally here to stay? Because it's been a long journey. If you guys don't remember, back in the first season, Jimmy Butler was here. There was a game against the Washington Wizards, innocuous game, first handful of games in Jimmy Butler's Heat career. But it was revealed after a practice that Jimmy Butler said that Bam Adebayo is now in the hole of $500. He owes him $500 for not taking a three-point shot. And so, all right, whatever. Is this mind you, this is very early in the Jimmy Butler days down here. Do we know about Jimmy Butler's trolling? We're all getting used to the Jimmy Butler experience. Who knows? But 2 games later, Bam Adebayo goes bang, bang of games attempting a three. Mind you, the bet is not making threes, it's taking threes. Jimmy Butler was trying to get Bam Adebayo to take threes. And he had even said in the quote after the Washington game, he said, if you don't see me kick to him open in the corner, the reason is I don't want to shell over $500. But next 2 games, Bam, I think it was against Chicago and Atlanta, Bam takes a 3. And after the game, I asked Bam Adebayo about this in the locker room, and he had said, hey, Jimmy Butler, fork it over, dude.
Now you're on the plus side of his bet.
Yeah. Hey, bro. Tell him, bring me my money.
Now, this is December of that season. And Jimmy was like beside himself. He's like, what? What do you mean he took a 3? He didn't even realize. And then had said, no, we got to get Spo to stop doing that. So,
something silly like a $500 bet to take a 3. Does seem like for a 3.
Did he take a 3 tonight?
Yeah, he did.
Did he really?
Yeah, he's plus in the third.
I gotta see it.
It's working.
I don't remember.
Like it seems like it's working. Like whatever motivating tactics you're using.
I don't remember that play. Fuck. Motherfucker.
When is the tab? Like when does everybody have to pay up on this? Is this a season thing?
Yeah, it's a seasonal thing. He really shot a 3?
Yes, he did. But
I think his foot was on the line.
No. You could argue he got fouled. They didn't call it, so it shouldn't have counted. The attempt is in the books. Yes.
Damn it, Bam. Shit.
You're the one who set the terms, though.
I know, but now he actually be going out there shooting 3s. We gotta talk to Spo. He shouldn't do that.
the trolling, that was kind of the last I remember it being a thing. Bam did not go on to start shooting 3s every single night. Became a weird season, pandemic season broke. Never really mentioned it. I think I asked Bam about it one time in an interview, and he kind of just like brushed it aside, but it never became a thing again. So you fast forward to the next year. Eric Spoelstra is talking about, and there's a media day coming in, and Eric Spoelstra is talking about, he's reacting to Bam saying in the preseason that he wanted to take more 3s, that he wanted to make it a thing. And Spo was very dismissive of it. He's like, I don't understand why people obsess about this with Bam.
Bam talked on media day about taking more 3s this year. Hasn't taken a 3 yet in the preseason. Do you think that's just something that's going to come with a little bit more time?
I don't know why everybody's so obsessed about that. The guy is improving in every aspect. I watch him, in his workouts. He can make the corner 3, as good as, basically any of our bigs.
And mind you, this is a guy who really had it all. I mean, could guard anybody 1 through 5. Obviously a very physical player, could bang with the best centers. Was starting to add mid-range game to his element. But the three-point shot was always an interesting one because it makes it interesting when you have Jimmy Butler, who doesn't shoot a ton of threes, really any threes in the regular season up until this year. And then you have your second best player in Bam Adebayo. It's funny. I remember that first year, Spo had said that Bam is kind of the center version of Jimmy Butler. And it is true in a lot of ways. One of the best defenders in the league, very, very unselfish, kind of lives in the mid-range of the free throw line, and once in a while will tickle you with a three. But it does make, when you have two of your best players like that, it can make it a little bit tough to find the right partners on the court. And so this is going to be an interesting development, not only just for the playoffs for the Heat, but if Bam can actually add this element to his game, what does this mean for the way the Heat are able to construct their roster? But I remember talking to Leroy. Leroy and I were talking to Chris Bosh about this because people have always said, man, Chris would be like the perfect guy right next to Bam. But in a lot of ways, Bam still could. And they had a really good relationship from the time Chris was still around the team a little bit. And he had said, like, hey, this kid's growing, but it definitely can be part of his game.
You know, I hope his confidence grows. And then him winning the skills challenge, you know, now he'll probably really think he's a point guard. You know what I mean? So
I just wish he would shoot that three.
Second half. Yeah. I mean, yeah, he'll get there. He'll get there. I'm assuming he'll get there. But you know, we still have to remember, man, he's still in his infancy in his NBA career. Mm-hmm. That's what's so exciting. They've got a franchise cornerstone guy, and you know what's most important for him is to learn how to be a leader, to learn how to lead the guys, and you know, and now he's got to deal with expectation, which is fine. It's all fine and dandy this past weekend. It's a lot of fun. Boy, you get your new All-Star jerseys and your warm-ups. Then when you come back down to reality, you've got that X on your back, and you've got to produce every night. So it'll be very, very exciting to see how he responds.
So everybody was saying, like, listen, give this time, let this kind of cook. Very young player. But now Bam is kind of hitting that part of his career, 26 years old. Is, you know, at the point where you're like wondering, all right, well, what is the next phase? And if you look back at Chris Bosh's crescendo, his Heat career, about 27 years old, the year of 2012, that's really when he added that three-point element to his game and really didn't even start adding it even more into it being a real threat, you know, the 2012-13 season. And then, of course, it really became part of his game 2013-14 before he ends up getting sick. So Bam can be right on line with that Chris Bosh type of growth. Yeah, Bosh always had, I would say, the more polished jump shot. I mean, not many had as silky smooth a J as CB did, but Bam has just shown such a tenacious ability to grow as a player with his hard work, with what he puts into the game every single night. And I do think it's interesting if this is here to stay for the Heat, which is, look, sometimes wonky times can lead to some interesting developments for players. You look back at a year, there was a year where Brook Lopez was on like a middling, treading Brooklyn Nets team and basically spent the entire year just doing nothing but chucking up threes, and made it part of his game. Right now the Heat are in this spot where, you know, who knows who's going to be the lineup night in and night out. And the Heat really have a gross lack of shooting right now. I mean, with no Tyler, Duncan, and Kevin Love, like, who do you trust as the shooters on this team? You know, Jimmy, you trust in spots, but he's probably going to take at most 3-4 a game. Nikola Jovic, as we saw yesterday, can get on a little bit of a heater, as can Caleb Martin, but also Caleb Martin can go and give you over 7. Patty Mills has given them nothing. So in these wonky times, maybe the Heat really have stumbled into something here with Bam Adebayo being a shooter. It was interesting because the wonky times are definitely something, but then there was also, I remember I was at a Heat practice. It was sometime in February. It was I think it was right after the All-Star break, right before they restarted. And it was funny because there was a big man shooting contest. I think Spo has mentioned this, but there was a shooting contest. It was Orlando Robinson, Thomas Bryant, Bam Adebayo. And they're shooting threes, and they're all going around the horn. And, doing these. A lot of the times the Heat we never get to see a Heat practice, but the media will get to see some shootouts, some one-on-one. Maybe you'll see Jimmy Butler going one-on-one with somebody, or you'll see some player going through, maybe a player on rehab going through some workouts. But a lot of times there'll be like a knockout game. There'll be some kind of a shootout game. But the theme of this one was big men. It was for the Heat centers, and Bam had won one, even if it was disagreed upon by Thomas Bryant, who's also been on a little bit of a hot streak himself. And I think the thing that's going to be a benefit to them is, one, we know that he's a very confident shooter. He's very much grown in that, but this is still going to be a place where I think people are going to dare Bam to shoot. They're gonna look at that and be like, all right, let him go take it. So I don't think he's going to face a lot of resistance here. And so as long as he has the confidence really to keep taking them, he's going to have the ability to make them. I'm not thinking that he's going to shoot 3-4 a game, but could we see a couple a game and that even drag into the playoffs? I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's a crazy thing to put past Bam, that we have actually not seen just a flash in the pan here or just a little bit of a fluke, that we actually have started to see Bam evolve into that part as a shooter. And I am definitely here for it, because, I mean, listen, I remember, looking at in the eyes of Jason Jackson, it was I think a preseason game against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and Bam had hit one, and we dying to see it. So while this has been a very weird month and frustrating as all hell, with loss to the Wizards and the blowout loss to the Nets and the blowout loss to the Pelicans, rather, and then Kyle Lowry's revenge game and all that stuff that you've had to deal with, and banging your head against the wall against the Denver Nuggets once again, this development with Bam's three-point shot is definitely interesting. And as I mentioned, one of the things that can make this tough with Bam, the Heat maybe have found their power forward of the future in Nikola Jovic. I mean, the guy is seemingly blossoming right before our eyes, and I really like Bam and Nico playing together. I don't care what the metrics say right now. There's just something to it, and I think that there can be this can be something dynamic that the Heat have. Spo used that description of them before this season, during this season, and I think that there's just something there. And Nico has shown that ability. I mean, Nico has been a nice shooter so far this year. He trusts that shot. He is becoming less afraid to pull the trigger on that. The next element to his game is obviously in the reverse. It's him becoming an attacking player and becoming confident when it's not just in the fast break, when it's not out in the open run of things, when he has to just put his head down and go between the trees. That's the next part of his game. So it's almost the reverse of Bam Adebayo, which makes them an intriguing pairing. But let's just say Nikola Jovic isn't here long term, or whatever. The Heat try something really, really different. The idea that you would have a Bam Adebayo who is a capable shooter, it does make it a lot easier to find roster fits for the Miami Heat. And that was, I think, one of the challenges, is you either have to find an undersized guy next to him who can shoot, or kind of a lethargic center who definitely can nail threes to put next to Bam. If this does become things, it does open up future roster constructions for the Miami Heat, and also just makes them a lot harder to defend in the full throttle of the postseason. So very, very curious to see how this goes, how aggressive he continues with it, especially once you have your full allotted set of Duncan, Tyler, Bam back, what that means in these last dozen regular season games and then the postseason run. But that has really been easily the most fun part of a very, very, very inconsistent March for the team. Bam's three-point shot and his evolution there, and this possibly emerging as a real thing, that has been something that has been fun to see.
Viral.